What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Reed, host and game master of Sneak Attack. Here I'm going to talk to you guys about mastering your storytelling. What does that really mean? This is the first time we've ever done anything like this for Patreon. Kind of my idea for this was taking an approach of you guys submit questions in advance about ways to improve your dungeon mastering or storytelling or writing or world prep or world building, anything like that. And then I'll go through and answer as many as I can on this video and hopefully give you guys tips that will help improve your sessions and improve your games. It's going to be very free form. I'm not going to edit this thing. It's just going to be rough. I've already read through all the questions and I've kind of written down my notes, but it's just going to be pretty free form, me talking to you guys, and hopefully you get something out of this. This is going to be happening every month, and as soon as I post this, there'll be next month questions. The post for next month's questions will be right there available too. So keep them coming. I really love this. I think this is a great idea to help bounce ideas off of each other and kind of develop this storytelling community within our Patreon. First off, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for submitting questions. I appreciate it. The first question comes in from Alyssa. She says, I have it here. So I've never DM'd before and I'd like to. Eventually, Josh suggested the Yawning Portal module would be a good starting point. I haven't gotten it yet, but I know it will give me tips and stuff as well as the layout of general gameplay. That's true. As a noob, what are some things I should expect and what would be some of the best ways to prep for them? Thank you, Alyssa, for the question. So I've said this before and I say it to everyone who's just starting DMing for the first time or running a game for the first time. It's the best thing that helped me early on was to have a list of NPCs, city names, shop names, anything that could come up randomly. Just have that on hand that you can draw from at a short notice. So if one of your players walks up to you and says, hey, I want to find this, I'm looking for something like this, where's a shop around town? You can just quickly pull from that list rather than having to make something up on the spot that might not have any lasting resonance. You can make something from this list you have and say, oh yeah, there's something like that 2 blocks down. It's called this. It's run by this person. And along with that list, having personality traits and stuff like that is really helpful too. So you don't have to have like a fully fleshed out NPC all the time that you can draw from. You can just have a name like Gelnor Zigglebutt. And their personality is kind of coy and sheepish, doesn't really like interacting with people that much, gets very nervous, and a fun little facial tick or like some type of identifier that'll help tell a story about the NPC right away. So what I like to do is like maybe he has an arm missing, and then why does he have that arm missing? Maybe that can be part of the conversation. Maybe he lost it in a battle. Maybe he has a penchant against a specific race of creature out there, and he's like, oh, I really hate these elves because I lost my arm in a war against the elves back 2 centuries ago. Just like that's just stuff I came up off the top of my head, and it's crap. But if you take even like 5 minutes and just like put something like that down on paper, you can very easily come up with what sounds like a really realized and fleshed out NPC without having to rack your brain and like really ruin your story because you get thrown a wrench. Obviously, for big NPCs, stuff that will affect the story long term, have those planned out, have those written out, put them down on paper in your story notes, in your outline or whatever you have, and that will really help the world and your story feel more realized and fully assembled. But for just quick stuff like that, it's a great way to lend authenticity to the world without you having to do a ton of work for it. I know it kind of sounds cheap, but really a little bit goes a long way. So also a couple other things. Don't be afraid to fudge your rolls. I always tell first-time game masters that don't be afraid, don't be a slave to the number. DM screens exist for a reason. It's so we can make up whatever roll we need to make up to make the story more interesting. If there is a PC of yours who's just doing insane damage on this creature and none of the other PCs are getting a chance, well, give them a little bit extra hit points so everyone gets a turn. If there's an enemy that's doing way too much damage to your heroes, well, you don't have to roll 19s and 20s on every roll. Even though it's fun, you can be like, ah, darn, I only rolled a 3. That's a miss. They don't know. The fight, unless the fight totally is important and the outcome dictates the future of your story, I don't tend to make these random encounters that happen in the woods or, you know, wherever. Like, I don't tend to make those super important because the only thing I use them for is to break up the monotony of the story. You can go a long ways with having them feel like they've really overcome something. So even if it means nothing to you, nothing to the story, but to them, it's a way for them to earn experience or earn cool items or just feel like they're coming together as a team. That is more important than the exact rolls of the dice. So never be afraid to fudge the numbers on that. Just whatever tells the best story in non-critical moments, that's it. Obviously, if you have something set up like a dungeon crawl or like a big bad end boss type of thing, and there are stakes and there are the ability of losing, like that's an option, then, you know, don't necessarily just screw them over or don't make it easy for them. Let the rolls be the rolls. But at the same time, if your players aren't having fun, then when none of it matters. So always remember that your players come first. Story comes second, although like the two should be really hand in hand, and then everything else is after that. So just tell a good story. The roles are totally independent of that. You can do whatever you want to make the story better and more interesting, even if it means lying a bit. And also, the Minds of Phandelver is also a great start. I always recommend to new dungeon masters or new game masters, don't homebrew something right away. It's just really hard. You can, I did, it was stupid, but it's just a lot of extra work that is unnecessary, and I thought I knew better, and I didn't. So use what's out there and available for you. Minds of Phandelver is a great start. Tales from the Yawning Portal is also a great start because it's like 13 mini adventures all packed into one thing. It's really, really great. If you want something more long form, the Hoard of the Dragon Queen is another great start because it'll take you all the way from like level 1 to level 20. It can be like a 3-year campaign if you want to. So those are my tips. I hope that helps. Obviously, like the more you do it and the more you run a game, the more in your own element you'll feel, and it'll just become more natural for you. Alyssa also had a follow-up question. How does challenge rating work? Specifically, that your question was, I know enemies have difficulty ratings, but I kind of struggle with understanding how to gauge the amount of enemies you can safely challenge your players with. That makes sense. How does the challenge rating work compared to the number of players on their levels? That's a great question. So say an enemy has a challenge rating of 4. What that challenge rating of 4 means is that this enemy is designed to be put up against a 4-person party whose average character level is 4. So if all of their character levels are 4, their average level is 4, that's a great challenge. Like this enemy would be a great challenge for him. If a challenge rating, if you have a 4-person party at level 4 and an enemy has a challenge rating of 1/2, you could put 8 of them up against this party of 4, and it'd still be a good challenge, like a good mix for them. Obviously, the increase of numbers can get really lopsided in a hurry, so be aware of that. But the general rule of thumb is the challenge rating is directly equal to the average party level of a party of 4. That's the rule of thumb. Good question. This next question is from, I think, Shayla or Shyla. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Shayla Harmon. They say, I have a player who is very lucky and he makes incredibly high rolls. Is there a way to make a harder challenge for him without punishing the rest of the group so combat can last longer? That's a really good question. And that's really tough. Especially if you have a player who is just dead set on min-maxing, which can feel bad at times, but obviously like dealing a lot of damage feels really good for the player. So you don't necessarily want to take that away from them. So my biggest recommendation would be to find enemies who are uniquely suited to oppose that player. What I mean by that is like, say, I'm going to assume it's like a fighter, a barbarian, a cleric, paladin, something that deals a lot of damage. So perhaps this player has a low ability score, like a low wisdom score, for example, because he dumped all of his stats into strength and con and something like that. So what I would do is put him up against a lot of magic users who force him to make wisdom saving throws. Something to where he can't just run in, guns blazing, so to speak, and expect to walk away unscathed. He's going to have to face enemies who are uniquely designed to oppose him as a player. It seems a little cheap, but even just forcing like a min-max super tank player to reevaluate how they charge into battle, that will go a long way. And just make him realize like, oh, I'm not invulnerable. I can actually die pretty quickly if I'm facing a certain group of enemy or a certain type of enemy. You do that once, really like set the tone early. What I would say is make him realize that, like take him almost to the brink of death. He will remember that for a long time. And he will hopefully realize that he's not immune to damage. He's not immune to the possibility of death, and put some fear into him. I also really enjoy combat that is multi-dimensional. What I mean is, say you have your players fighting a group of enemies in a temple or something like that, or in a dungeon crawl or something like that. Well, all of those locations are ripe for the opportunity for traps or different things to happen in the middle of combat. My favorite thing to do is like rocks fall, or like there's like a landslide or something happens that it like the environment gets a turn. And so different things happen to where combat almost takes a pause and says, okay, we need to stop what we're doing, and we need to react to what is happening in the world. Maybe a hole opens up, or like wherever they're fighting, if they're in a ship, it flips upside down, or like all these different things that make you think, okay, everything I knew about the fight is changed. I need to reassess that. And maybe other lines of sight are blocked now. Maybe paths are blocked. Maybe an enemy gets a certain buff if he's standing in sunlight. Maybe it's like a radiant type of enemy who gets buffed for being in the sun, or like a vampire who gets buffed for being in the moon, or something like that. Different things like that, different options really go a long way towards making the fight seem more interesting, and aren't just a result of my dice roll is really high and yours isn't, and congrats, I'm the winner. So just stuff like that to really mix up combat and make it feel more flavorful should hopefully go a long way in making his impact feel not quite as one-sided in the fight, if that makes sense. Good question, and these are all really good questions. So this next one is from Alex, and Alex says, how much detail do you put into a new place or city when you're planning? What do you do if a player asks you to do something that you totally haven't planned for? That's a really good question. That's one I probably get asked the most out of all of my like DM tips. And honestly, the answer is not great. I mean, I don't have like a surefire, this is the key to success kind of answer. But what I will say is improvisation is definitely a skill that can be developed. The more you use it, the better you get at it. That's just how it goes. And so to be a dungeon master requires the ability to think on your feet. Now, obviously, I say all that with the caveat of you don't want to make up everything on the spot, because then you're just not planning, you're not doing a good job, and you're not doing your due diligence for your players to make them feel like they're having a good time. So, but don't ever feel so constrained by your notes that you can't go off script. So what I mean by that is, when I'm planning something in a city, I'll take the same approach that I took for Alyssa's first question, which was, having a list of things pre-written down that I can pull from at a moment's notice. No, I never anticipated to have to use this random shop name in this city, but guess what? They asked for it, and now it is. Now it's just part of the lore, part of the canon, and it's no big deal. Like, it's totally fine to be able to flex that a little bit and to be able to use it that way. Totally okay. So with that in mind, don't feel so like locked into, I didn't have it written down, so no, there's not a shop available. I almost always tell my players, if you make me want something or make me fall in love with something, I'm going to say yes. So if one of my players comes to me and says, hey, I want to find a shop that can let me do this, or I want to buy something that does this, if I think it's cool, heck yes, let's do it. Even if I have to fumble my way through it a bit, if I'm making it up on the spot, I know that I'm really making their involvement feel like what they want has like a place in this world. They're not just an observer in this game. What they want and what their goal is as a player is actually something they can achieve in the world. So Really, even if it gets uncomfortable at first, that's totally fine, man. That's just how, like, you're hanging out with your friends. It's gonna get a little, like, you're not gonna be perfect at it, especially right away, but it's totally fine. Like, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And if someone says, "Hey, I'm looking for a shop to buy this," even if you didn't have it planned out, or you're out of, like, your list is empty, just say, "You know what? Yeah, there's one around the corner. Let's flex this brain muscle and let's see what I can do with it." Talk in a weird voice, give the NPC some type of facial defect, and I mean, really just like go crazy. Like, nothing is too abstract in D&D or tabletop RPGs. I always try and go big, because the bigger the personality, the more memorable and often more fun the NPC is. And then, like, sometimes they'll turn into long-standing recurring characters that you never had anticipated, and those are the most fun, when something totally random and totally off the cuff ends up becoming a much bigger deal in the game, because you thought it was fun, your players responded well to it, and you're all able to latch onto this and, like, join in that storytelling together. That when you've achieved that, that's D&D distilled to perfection, and it feels really good. So don't shy away from it. It feels scary, but don't shy away from it. You'll be happy you did. Okay, that was your question. I knew there were two more coming up. This next one is from Aaron. Actually, these last two are from Aaron. Aaron asks, "What type of real world inspiration do you use for your worlds, NPC stories, etc.?" That's a great question. My answer is everything. Literally everything can be used as inspiration. Seems like a cop-out answer, I know, but I'm in line in Chipotle waiting to make a burrito, and a guy in front of me has a funny hat on, or is having a phone call that I can only hear one side of, and his mannerisms while he's talking on the phone are really strange. I think to myself, man, this dude is like a comic book, or just he's just a cartoon character. That's a great NPC. Or I'm watching a movie and I think, I'm watching an episode of Law and Order, and they go and interview this suspect for something, and this suspect works at this, like, a grocery store or something. And I think to myself, man, like, this is a really cool character, or he's got some trait about him that I think could be really fun in my world. Or I really like the theme of this movie. It's a Western, but I like the theme of a father and a son's relationship that is growing strained as the son is growing up and learning to become his own person. Obviously, I'm not making a Western, or I'm not making like a Law and Order series, but I can take those inspirations and, like, I want to make characters, or I want to tell a story that uses that same theme of a parent and a child's relationship that is growing apart as they age, and what it means to the parent to feel like they're losing their child. You know what I mean? Like, that's obviously that was 100% off the cuff, but it's just like, you can find moments that resonate with you anywhere. If you're looking, like, if you're keeping your eyes open and open to those ideas, you can literally find them anywhere. Obviously, I gravitate towards different types of mediums. Movies and video games are my big two. So it's easy for me to find themes in those, in those types of forms of entertainment. But I mean, books, television, just like workplace interactions, anything that makes you take a second and go, that's interesting. Really dial into it. Think, why is it interesting? What about it actually am I drawn to? And then you can distill even further down to the core idea of what makes you feel like that it was interesting. And then you can inject something like that into your world in your own way, in your own narrative twist that feels like it belongs in your world. Sorry, that was a lot. That was like word vomit right there. But, like, honestly, like, you can get inspiration from anywhere if you're open to looking for it. And lastly, Aaron asks, are there any apps you use to help organize your campaign? Google Drive is my life. I have everything I need for Volume 2's campaign living in Google Drive, and it is a lifesaver. So I do all of my story notes, like my campaign notes, in a Google Doc, and the way I organize things is things I want to say out loud at the table are in black. Things I'm like writing for myself, my own personal notes, are in orange. And so I know I'm never going to say something orange out loud at the table, but anything that's in black is fair game. and I can put in pictures, maps, charts, diagrams, anything I need right into the dock, and I never have to switch apps if I do my prep work correctly and can actually lay things out accordingly. For players, I know when we were playing 5th edition, they used an iPad app called Fight Club 5e. That was really good for making and managing your player, your PC, but I never really found that useful from like the game prep Dungeon Master side. I think there was a Dungeon Master app made by that same group, but I never used it. I think I downloaded it, but I just immediately discarded it because it just was like, it was all about like creating encounters, and it just didn't really work for me. Because again, going back to Alyssa's first question, Alyssa's first question, I fudge my rolls so much that like stats and stuff like that don't really mean a ton to me. I just use them as a baseline and then go from there. Oh, another great thing that I've found that I use a lot is random name generators. If there's there's a website that'll do a billion different like elf name generators, orc name generators, dwarf, human, whatever. And you can do planets and galaxies and Lord of the Rings names and Star Wars names and all, like, it's this incredible website that does all of this stuff. If you just Google fantasy or like elf name generator, I'm sure it'll be the first result. I use that a lot for coming up with names, not because I think the list is particularly good, but because by reading these names, I'm drawn to a sound or like a letter arrangement, and I go, ooh, what if I like just mix these letters up a bit and then I come up with something? Like, the bad names it puts up will often trigger something that I think is good. And so if even getting bad ideas, new, fresh, bad ideas will often trigger something good in your head. Be like, I don't like that, but I do like this. And so it's nice just to sometimes get like a tidal wave of bad names and bad ideas thrown at you, and then you can just like sift through them and find something that really fits whatever it is you're looking for. So yeah, those are like my biggest tips. Just write things down, have well organized notes, and don't be afraid to improvise. That's it. Let's see. We've been recording for 22 minutes. That I feel is a really good length of time for this. So hopefully you got something from this. Please keep the questions coming. I'm going to do another like mastering your storytelling post for the month of March very soon. So when you see that post come in, submit your questions, and then I'll all through like from now until the middle of March, and then I will make another video next month answering your guys' questions and hopefully helping you guys make your sessions even better. That's the whole idea, is that we iron sharpens iron kind of thing. We build off of each other and make everyone's games better. So I hope that you guys were able to get something from this. I hope that other questions were inspiring other people, and everyone walked away with some tips or something that will help them. Also, because this is the Class 3 tier on Patreon, I wanted to let you guys know we just got our first batch of postcards in yesterday. Look how cool those look. Oh, there's lore on the back. You can't see it yet. So it's super cool. I'm very excited to get these shipped out. They should be going out here. Today is Saturday, so they should be going out next week. Also, sneak peek number 2. Oh, there it was. That's all you get. We have the first 2 months postcards in, so that was all you get for number 2. But thank you guys so much. I hope that I hope that you found this useful. I hope that you'll ask even more questions next time, and that we are just ultimately making everyone's games even better. So thank you guys so much. I'll catch you next time. This has been Mastering Your Storytelling. I'm Reed. Hope you have a good night. Peace. Appreciate you.